So I would like to start the lesson today quickly because we have so many things to discuss by, of course, answering some questions. The issue of sort of contention last week, thanks to May, the issue of Mordecai versus Haman. Okay, this is in chapter 3 for those of you who are joining us for the first time. This is where we are, Esther chapter 3. And the question was, why did Mordecai not want to bow down to Haman? By that time, Haman had been promoted already, and he was the highest ranking official, and the king had given a command that everybody should bow down and pay homage to Haman. But this guy called Mordecai, who is actually Esther's adopted father, refused to bow down. A, because he did not want to break the law. This would be a very typical Seventh-day Adventist answer, okay, because we are so much into 10 commandments. B, because he did not want to bow to an Agagite. That was an issue of contention about tribal wars. C, because Haman was promoted and not him. That's a political struggle. Or D, all of the above. So can you just type in your answer now in the chat? Which one do you think? B, okay, he did not want to bow to an Agagite. B, or B seems to be winning. B. Wow, so many B's. Okay, let's go A, B, C, and finally the D, whether there's actually an answer D. Most of you answered B, all right? So, but let's go to the A one first. Okay, A1 is because he did not want to break the law. Ben says it's too mainstream, correct? Yes, very Adventist. So you want to be very different, okay? But let's look at what the Bible says. This is where in biblical interpretation or in hermeneutics and exegesis, we use, Pastor has taught us already, language, okay? The language context. That means to say, if we cannot find the answer in the English, which is all the Bible we are reading, perhaps we need to go back and read the Hebrew version, okay? Alinda likes to do that. May also likes to do that. We have been taught to actually go back, because the Bible was not originally written in English. So that causes a bit of confusion, Mr. Lai. You're right in that sense, that it does cause a bit of confusion because it's already translated from Hebrew to Greek, finally to Latin, and then English. And now we have Mandarin, and we have, all the other, how many hundreds of languages that the Bible has been translated into. So there is two issues here. One is bowing down. So let me see whether we can get to the verse. All right. So the verse will be Esther 3 verse 2. Okay, Esther 3 verse 2. If we can refer to Esther 3 verse 2. As a result, all the king's servants who were at the king's gate were bowing and paying homage to Haman. So there's two actions there, the bow and the homage. The Hebrew for the paying homage is this word, okay, umistahawim. And this word only appears 2 times in the Bible. One is in Esther 3 verse 2. The other one is in Nehemiah 9 verse 3. The Nehemiah 9 verse 3 context is talking about worship, right? It's talking about worship. So this particular word, I have consulted my Hebrew teacher, is uniquely for worship, and it was mentioned in this particular verse because there's the bowing and then there's the paying homage. Then there were some comments. Joseph's brothers also bowed down to him in Genesis 42:6, and Jacob also bowed to Esau in Genesis 33:3. But those were different words. Okay, that is a different word, but it's basically bowing. This context may be a bit different in the sense that there is more command there in the sense of paying homage and bowing down. So that's why some people believe that the answer is the conventional mainstream answer is that he did not want to break the law. Okay, then what about B? Because he did not want to bow to an Agagite, which is I think most of your answers, okay? Most of your answers. And I like that because I believe that in Discovery class, you should be thinkers, critical thinkers. Now, when I say critical thinkers, the critical word in critical thinkers is not criticize, right? It's critiquing, okay? Criticize means you find everything that's negative and, you know, sometimes untrue. Critique is to actually study and go into it. So critical thinking is critiquing, not criticizing. Because he did not want to bow to an Agagite, which is true, because Amalekites, where Agag come from, has been long-time enemies with God's people, so-called the Israelites. Starting all the way from Moses' time, they were in the wilderness. Right? Joshua was the one that fought the Amalekites. Moses, what did he do? He just pulled up his hand. Remember that incident? Every time he held up his hand, Israelites would win. Every time he put down his hand, the Israelites will lose. Every time he put up. So this is one of the stories that in corporate life or even in Sabbath school, they talk about teamwork, okay? So what happened? The elders helped him to support his hand. That was the first war. Then after that, King Saul was supposed to kill that king, King Agag, but King Saul preserved him. That's why God punished King Saul. After that, King David killed a lot of the Amalekites, but 400 escaped in Ziklag. And that's the reason why today we have Haman, okay? We have Haman, the enemy of Mordecai, which I would say is a very reasonable answer to say that he did not want to bow because it was an Agagite, right? Because they are long-time enemies. So B is the correct answer. Now, C, how about C? Nobody chose C. Why? Because Haman was promoted and not him. This is another point of view, POV. This is another point of view because remember, Haman and Mordecai, they were all actually king's officials. However, Haman was the only one that was promoted. If you had gone back to Esther chapter 2 and end of chapter 2, what did Mordecai do? Mordecai saved the king's life by exposing the plot. There were two eunuchs that were plotting to kill the king. And Mordecai was the one who overheard and told Esther, and Esther told the king, and the king captured and executed the two. So the king's life was saved. So you would think, wow, to save the king's life, he would have been promoted. But nothing was done for him, only recorded. Okay. When it comes to chapter 3, do you think he felt a little bit disappointed that his peer would be promoted and not him? So if you talk on the spiritual aspect, yes, then definitely he doesn't want to break the law because he's an Israelite. But if you talk on the humanistic point of view, there's this human conflict, correct or not? And C could be true because Mordecai is only human. And he, of course, definitely has been working and serving the king. Perhaps when he saw Haman, a little bit of disappointment entered him. And because of all this, he made the very, very serious decision not to bow down to Haman. So, what do the scholars think? Actually, it's D, all of the above. Okay, there's nobody can tell you exactly because, like what Dr. Fanwa says, that sometimes the Bible narrative is silent. Okay, in the sense that it doesn't give you full details, but it will be revealed along the way. Okay, so hang in there and keep searching. That's the reason why we continue to search. Okay, now next question. Did King Ahasuerus know about the Jews before Haman told him? Yes. Angela says yes. Anybody else? Did King Ahasuerus know about the Jews? A, yes. C, don't know. Yeah, that's why you asked the question, Celine. Yes. C, don't know. Okay. I'm glad nobody says doesn't matter. Yes. Yes, Joey says yes. Okay. None of you say no. Huh? So how do you defend your answer, which is yes? How do you prove that it's yes or defend that it's yes? Okay, so there's a Ben who says he doesn't know Mordecai is a Jew. Yes, otherwise why would Mordecai tell Esther not to reveal her ethnic identity? Very good. Okay, very good. You're doing a lot of deductions here. Because with Mordecai, if let's say the king didn't know about the Jews, then no point to hide the fact, correct or not? But did the king do these kings always know about the Jews? Not necessary, because next time when we go back to Ezra, Darius didn't know much about the Jews until he had to search the records. So if you go to Ezra chapter 6, you know that Darius had to open up the records because there was a dispute, right? There was open up the records and see, and yes, then only he found out that Cyrus issued the decree. So not necessary, because don't forget, now this is like almost about 100, close to 100 years of history. And that time there's no CNN, there's no BBC, there's no Facebook, right? There's no internet. So news does not always spread. And don't forget, he is governing a huge, massive empire, which he left to the governors and the satraps. So he was just this king that was enjoying himself with all the ladies and everything. Actually, you know, if you really read and exegete that verse, Haman is a very cunning guy. Whether the king knew or not, but Haman did not even mention the word Jews. Haman only mentioned, if you go back to read, Haman only mentions what? That there's a group of people. Okay, there's a group of people, and he didn't even say it's the Jewish people. So that is another thing for us to think about. And he was very smart. Perhaps if he had said it was the Jewish people, the king would have been afraid, right? I don't know. Yes, it doesn't say, but it just says that there's this group of people. Now, what clouded the king's mind? Yes, more like manipulate the king. What clouded the king's mind was what? What do you all think? The king's mind that, never mind, I'll give you the ring, you can do whatever, can sign whatever. What was it? Yes, okay. It was the 10,000 talents of silver. Okay, so 10,000 talents. How much was it? Alinda and May, last week you gave a figure, correct or not?
80 million, 80.
Oh, sorry, 80 million. And so the king gave him the ring, and Haman went about, and it became an edict. That means it became law. There was a question about how did Mordecai know that he was going to kill the Jews? It became law. It was published. Okay, it was published, and of course there was this lot that was passed to say that the edict will be, the action will be about a year later. But he gave the money back to Haman in verse 11. Did he give the money back to Haman? That was another question, which is the next question that I want to answer, is did the king give back the money to Haman? Cindy?
I believe he received the money.
Okay.
Like it was like a bait, you know, like Haman's bait to the king. It's like to
yes,
the king, you know.
Yes.
And although it implies that the king was not interested, but it has an implication of like, well, Haman, if you really want to do it your way, be my guest.
Yes, correct. He didn't say give it back, you know.
Yeah.
Some of your verse, I think most of the versions, especially the Haman, the CSB today, says that verse 11, this is chapter 3, verse 11. Different versions have it, but most of the versions will say what? The money and the people are given to you to do as you see fit. That was actually what was the answer in verse 11. Okay, I know the Net Bible, the Net version says you can have it. So I think we must understand political games played by kings as well, that they will take the money, okay, but they will not say they want the money. So Haman will probably put it into his bank account, the king's bank account. So did the king give back? No, the king had all the money, which was probably put somewhere and all that. But you know that in Ezra 7, actually the king contributed a lot of it for Ezra to go back and build the temple. So sometimes, you know, God receives money in different ways. It could have been this money, or it could have been money that the king received a few years ago, right? Who knows? But the king actually gave Ezra, the Jew, to actually go take it back to Jerusalem to continue to build the temple. So what happened? Letters were sent by the runners to all the king's provinces, stating that they should destroy, kill, and annihilate all Jews. It sounds like very familiar, isn't it? From youth to elderly, both women and children, on a particular day, named the 13th day of the 12th month. Now remember, this one is the first month. When Haman spoke to the king, it was the first month. It was Nisan. Now, so it will be a year. Then you say, ayo, how come one whole year to actually execute the edict? Don't forget, it's a vast empire, and all Jews, including Jerusalem and all that, was going to be killed, and it was going to happen on the 13th day because they cast the lot, they cast the pearl, and it happened that it came on 13th of the 12th month. Remember this date. There's a month of Adar, and to loot and plunder their possessions. And Mordecai was so distressed. He was distressed, maybe he regretted his action, I don't know, or he was so distressed because at first he thought he was going to die alone, but Haman decided to kill all the Jews, to kill all the Jews. And of course, the message came to Esther, and Mordecai told her this. If you remain completely silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise from the Jews from another place. Means that if you don't want to do it, God will send somebody else. Of course, God is never mentioned in the book of Esther. But you and your house, your father's house will perish. Means that you and me, we're going to die, right? Yet who knows whether you have come to this kingdom for such a time as this. Yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this. Wow, that is a very, very important statement. So here is the dilemma of a young lady, queen of Persia, yet loyal to her father. Now the fate of the whole Jewish nation rests on her shoulders. So what was she going to do? Okay, so we continue our assignment with Team Val. Last week we stopped and then we didn't really go into the actual event. So I would like Val and Ben, I think, to continue on to see what she actually did.
So what was the entire event of how after the fasting and everything, what happened after that, right? So on third day itself, Esther actually dressed up very nicely as a queen, and then eventually went into the courtyard, like trying to pick whether I can meet the king or not, right? Trying to see whether can I have a chance to actually meet the king. And then the king saw her, and the king says, "Hey, queen, come inside," right? Immediately got the approval, got it in, and the king extended the gold scepter to her and says, "Hey, you can approach and see it." And at this point of time, the king is very fond with the queen and says, "I can give you half of the kingdom. You just tell me what you want," right? But Esther tries to play a different game, and Esther took it in a sense of allowed me to create a banquet for you and Haman. Instead of doing in a direct approach, Esther did it a different approach and says, "I would like to prepare a banquet for you." And the king says, "Very well, all right, just get Haman in, and then let's have a feast." And the king has his thought and says, like asking Esther again what actually she wants. This is my petition and my request. If the king approves of me, and if it pleases the king to grant my petition and perform my request, may the king and Haman come to the banquet again, and I will prepare to them. So meaning to say, there will be a second banquet. Then that actually brings up and boosts up Haman's ego, I will put it this way, and says, wow, the queen and the king offered 2 banquets and 2 parties and only invited me. And Haman went happily out and saw Mordecai was still outside the gate so they planned to actually execute Mordecai in a different way. So he and his wife and his friends sort of plan out and say, maybe you build a gallows of 75 feet high and ask the king in the morning and hang Mordecai on it, then go to the banquet to the king and enjoy yourself.
Thank you very much. I think this is a very familiar story to most Christians, is the fact that Esther actually approached the king, but the king was favoring her because she knew how to dress up nicely, put on her best and come in. And if she says that, if I'm pleasing in your sight, so she knows how to capture the king's favor. If I'm pleasing to your sight, okay? So it is also very important for women to take care of their image. Is that? The question is it heroic or duty bound? Will you classify her as a heroine, or that's her duty, isn't it? What do you guys think?
So for what the entire team Val was actually discussing this along the line, as we think that actually it starts off with duty, bound, but it takes courage and bravery for someone that performs duty only to actually go ahead and talk to the king. It shows the heroic side of Esther as well, because it causes her life. If the king doesn't favor her, well, that there you go, another queen being exterminated out of her duty to actually fast and then go and meet the king. But at the same point, because of the decree that if the king doesn't summon to you, you can't meet the king. It's actually heroic for the queen to actually go into the inner court.
It was duty bound, of course, at first, but it was a heroic act on her part. Because you say, she would have died anyway, right? Because she was a Jew. But she says, if I die, I die. Okay? I would rather die doing a good act than just die like that. So the circumstances have heavy it. Might as well try. Might as well do it. Doesn't matter the circumstances. Is up to this point, king doesn't know Esther is a Jew. Okay, up to this point. Now, another question is, why go to all the partying to reveal to the king what she wanted? The king already asked, right? Even half the kingdom I will give to you. Book of Esther has the most mention of banquets, 20 over times. Because why? It started off with King Ahasuerus having a banquet, correct? And then after that, when he married Esther, another banquet. And now, in times of stress, another banquet. Going to be another banquet before everything happens. So Esther knows her husband, the king loves party, good. Knows how to get into the king's heart, make the king tipsy, okay? All the Chardonnays coming out, the whiskeys and the brandies. Best way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Yes, correct. That one. Is it true, guys? Is it the best way to a man's heart? There are many men here. Is it true? Is it true, Peter? No.
Yes.
Okay. Don't agree. Okay. Yeah, you can see that she's using a couple of tactics. Not necessarily just the food, but I think the food is a major issue. But the fact of or submission, or this type of thing. First thing, she has to look pretty and all that. So she basically knew how to get into the king's heart. God will be with me when I will go in my pajamas. She didn't do that. Okay, she even God, after fasting, she knew that God was with her. She still had to plan her strategies. So make sure that we plan our strategies well as well. Chapter 6 and 7 describe the turnaround of events, what happened. And here, remember, Haman thinks it's going to be him that's going to be honored. He's the only one going to the party with the king and the queen. So let's see what happens, this turnaround in chapter 6 and 7. And I'll give the time to Brother Alex team.
I'm Jessica.
Okay, Jessica.
I enjoy reading Esther. I read the whole chapter. It's a very easy to read story, and other book that have a lot of words and very deep word. So I really enjoy, as a woman, I enjoy reading Esther. And start on the question about this turnaround. So in this verse 6 to 7, there are two main characters with Haman and Mordecai. So Haman is, to me, after I read these two verses, pride is really a powerful enemy of the soul when someone have pride. And they start to become enemy because when Mordecai refused to bow to Haman. So then the conflicts begin. Okay, in verse 6, it says that one night the king cannot sleep. So he started to read the books of record in what happened in the palace and the gate. Then he read about there are two men wanted to kill the king, and Mordecai stopped this event. Then king start to ask, hey, what is the honor or rewards they're giving to Mordecai? And then the people say, oh no, none. Then just happened that Haman walked in, and then the king asked Haman, what shall be done for the man who the king delight to honor? That I want to honor, what should I do? Then Haman thought that because he's a favor man to the king, so Haman thought that who on earth the king want to honor except me? So the Haman sure say, oh, for the man that you want to honor, let give the robe of let a royal robe be bought, which the king has worn, and a horse which the king has ridden, right? Which has a royal crest placed on his head. That means have all the good honor give to the person. Then the king said, okay, hurry, take the robe and the horse as you have suggested, and do so for Mordecai. So Haman have no choice that he has to honor Mordecai. So the turnaround is Haman has to honor Mordecai. So which is very humiliating for Haman. So when he went home, he wanted to take a revenge. So when Esther called for the banquet and told king what happened, and then when the king found out as what the team A has explained earlier, but actually I like what Esther said. If it's favor the king, I think as a woman, if we say this to men, I think it's a very effective communication. So when the king found out that Haman actually is the person that planned all these things and want to kill the Jews, so king has lost trust to Haman and wanted to execute him. And then king said, okay, since he built this, let him be executed there. So to me, is initially Haman thought that the honor is go to him, but actually the honor is go to Mordecai. So I would say that why Haman want to build the 75 feet height of the gallows? Because he really, really, really hate Mordecai. At the end, he hate the whole Jews. And he want to build such high gallows because he want everyone to witness the hang of Mordecai in the public. The end, I would say, whoever digs a pit will fall into it, and who rolls a stone will have it roll back to him. The next question is coincidence or providence. So I'll leave it to you all.
I'll do that. I'll do the coincidence or providence. After Jessica has explained, I think, I, in my opinion, I think it's providence in action. You know, that King cannot sleep. He has to command that a book be brought to him and read. So, and then the one who was commanded to bring the book could have bring any one book, but he has to bring that particular book. And that book could be opened at any page, but it opened at the exact page, you know, telling the story of Mordecai and how he saved the king from assassination. So I believe this is all is God's work, it's providence. It's not like it's just coincidence. Okay, at that time, Haman just entered the outer court. And I would say that it was no coincidence that he entered the king's court, you know, just at that moment. So it shows us that, I feel that, I think that it shows us that God manages the affairs of men. He knows where to place the people or the events in order.
Very, very comprehensive presentation on what actually happened and the turnaround of events. Unfortunately, this story is, there is no extra biblical records of it, meaning that other from the Bible, outside sources, there's no record of this event. Even the name Esther is not mentioned in extra biblical records. So, providence or coincidence? Anybody? Few points to show why it's providence over coincidence. The book pages and open to telling the story of Mordecai saving the king. That's right. Just now, Cindy said, could have been any books. Why he took out the record books? And it was very strange that earlier when Mordecai actually exposed the two eunuchs trying to kill the king, nothing happened. The king didn't honor him then. Right? If the king had honored him then the story would not have been this way. So somehow he was bypassed for promotion, okay? So any of us that are bypassed for promotion in our companies or even in church or whatever it is, understand that perhaps God has a better plan or God has a purpose for his plan. It may not be your plan, but it's God's plan. But whether it's providence or coincidence, what do you think? Was it providence or was it coincidence? Because your answer is going to be very important. Providence, okay? Providence, okay. Providence, yes, providence. Because if it is providence, then you would be able probably to answer the question of why is the book of Esther in the Bible. Correct or not? If it's coincidence, then you can question. Because why is it in the Bible? Because it doesn't talk about God and all that. It shouldn't be in the Bible. God is very interesting, you know. He will cause your enemies to be ashamed. See what he did to Haman? It was a turnaround. So sometimes we think God is so straightforward, you know, but no, God is maneuvering. So he, instead of shaming Mordecai on the gallows, like what Jessica said, 75 feet, he wants everybody to see Mordecai being hanged. At the end of the day, it was who that was hanged? It was Mordecai's enemy, which is a Jew's enemy. Okay, just like today, don't mess with the Christians. Okay, don't mess with God's people. We must have the confidence of the fact that God is our protector, that no weapons formed against us will prosper. And this is the promise that God has made. I know sometimes in this world it's so hard because, you know, you get arrows all over the place. You get arrows from your family, you get arrows from your boss, you get arrows from your students, you get arrows from the government, you can get arrows from friends, from foes, and all that. But notice and really be assured of one thing from this story is that no weapons formed against us will prosper. Whatever the enemy can plot and the enemy can design against us, remember this, if you are in God's purpose, then God will know how to hang your enemies.